Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Urban Legends video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's do another entry here. This one having to do with a fascinating case of something that apparently roams a military park here within the United States. No one knows exactly when its original origin was, but it definitely came about during the time of the Civil War. That's when it gained more prominence and is apparently seen even to this very day. In fact, it was hard to discern whether I would include it here on the urban legends side or on the ghosts and spirits and maybe even the cryptids and monsters, because it shares characteristics with so many things at the same time. But ultimately I wanted to include it here because it certainly seems like a tale that's told throughout time about its encounters, much like an urban legend. In fact, you're looking at a representation of it now. It even has a name that sounds like an urban legend. It's known as Old Green Eyes. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all the fascinating information associated with this very unique tale, a creature or some other type of entity that is almost like a remnant of the Civil War. So here's essentially what happened. Again, as I mentioned just a minute ago, no one really knows the exact origin of Old Green Eyes. There's tales that apparently has been roaming that type of land there for a long time, long before, in fact, the Civil War time period. But it was the circumstances involving that devastating war that caused it to come out of its hiding, if you could even call it that. But yes, you first have to go to an infamous battle known as the Battle of Chickamauga. Hope I'm saying that correctly. The Battle of Chickamauga. And this was something that was there during the Civil War. Everyone remembers, of course, the Battle of Gettysburg, but this was actually the second largest battle within the entire Civil War, and it had one of the highest counts of deaths as well from both sides when it comes to the battle itself. But this occurred during September 19th and September 20th of 1863. And it was there on a hill called Snodgrass Hill. In fact, the total tally of deaths that occurred was almost 4,000. But if you include all the other people wounded and then also apparently either captured or missing, so those people could also be dead as well, there could be even more so. Like we're talking about 10,000 plus, maybe even 20,000 plus when it comes to the total tally. Scary stuff, because obviously the Civil War was a very prolonged battle that involved a lot of suffering, and especially at this Battle of Chickamauga, with its size, it apparently brought forth this entity. So this field, all the blood that was spilled there, it absolutely helped draw whatever this thing was out from its hiding, and then it started roaming after the battle shortly afterward in those hills. In fact, here's how this being is described. It stated that it's a beast with very long, shaggy hair, like almost like the length of a woman's hair, and there it was haunting that location and being apparently roaming throughout those hills amongst the corpses themselves. One could imagine that with so many deaths that it took a long time for many of those bodies to be moved or to be buried, if even they were afterwards. And so here was this thing that was described as being big, human-like, again with that very shaggy long hair. And then he also had a deformed jaw with some terrifying fangs that were associated with it. But by far, its most distinct feature happens to do with its name. It had these gigantic green glowing eyes that would absolutely just illuminate the entire field. Quite eerie when you think about that, because imagine being in that field. Already it's down and downtrodden when it comes to having so much death there. You can almost just feel the heaviness. And then here's this thing, whatever it is, wherever it came from, almost having like an evil malice associated with it. Here it is roaming amongst those corpses, but it happens to have those almost like fog light eyes, the ones that are just shining, just a brilliant green glowing eyes. And imagine them focusing on you, all of a sudden, like turning around like the whip of an owl, the way the head moves so quickly. Imagine those eyes suddenly zooming in on you as you're trying to inspect what this is. But there it is. It apparently roams that Battle of Chickamauga and the Sandras Hill, and ever since then, it's been seen throughout multiple occasions, again, just haunting that location and then other nearby areas because of what was drawn, how it was drawn there, because of what was happening at that particular location during the Civil War. And visitors and park rangers, they've all encountered, I mean, not all of them, but some of them that have stated the same thing. It's this green-eyed creature that looks inhuman, almost like a ghost, and then in some cases almost like a cryptid. And then there it is, just roaming about the area, just looking about, almost as if it's searching for another type of encounter. In fact, there's been several notable encounters that occurred. One of them involving in the 1970s with two people that happened to be there at the park itself. They were driving by the park, so somebody might have to fill me in on there. I imagine that there's a road, right? Probably like a big main road, a street road, or maybe even a highway road. Either way, though, it passes by that particular park, and as these two people were doing so, two different people, two different set of circumstances, they drove their car off the roads, both of them wrecking them, because all of a sudden they saw these eerie pair of glowing green eyes staring back at them from somewhere within that military field. You would think that at this point they were probably driving at night too, considering how perfect the situation would be, where it would cause them to careen off the road because of the shock of what they were witnessing. But yes, that happened in the 1970s to two different people, both of them driving at night. But by what is considered the most notable encounter happened in 1976 as well, but it was told in 1981 by a park ranger, a guy by the name of Edward Tinney. He stated that he was working there. This was in the dead of night, 4 a.m., He was walking around the park. He had heard of the tale associated with old green eyes, because by then you could totally imagine anyone that works there, either new coming on board or old, having been there for a while, knows about this about the encounters and everything associated with old green eyes. But there he was, calmly walking throughout the park, when all of a sudden he described feeling an incredible chill. It was just something that came across his body, that type of sixth sense alert that your body does when something is absolutely unnatural, that's, whatever is happening to you nearby is causing a whole set of dangerous red alarms. And then that's when he looked at a certain area, and that's when he saw this green-eyed being casually just stepping out into the darkness. In fact, this is some of what he said when it came to that encounter. He said, "When it passed me, I could see his hair was long like a woman's. The eyes, I'll never forget those eyes. They were glaring, almost greenish orange in color, flashing like some sort of wild animal. And then the teeth were long and pointed like fangs." And so this thing was just casually walking across that field, and all of a sudden there were these other set of lights, but in this case coming from a car, that caused it to catch its attention. And then when the car whipped around and it disappeared into a nearby fog, that's when this guy, the park ranger, looked back, and then that's when he saw that this thing was gone. Old Green Eyes must have been alerted that there was other things, like either the park ranger or that car and this traveling companion, they were there and gone, and so it didn't want to stay any longer, and so that was it. That's when it visibly just disappeared, and it was not seen afterward. But that's at least one of the best encounters associated with anything involving Old Green Eyes. But that's pretty much it. That's all the information associated with this legendary creature. Again, pretty hard to describe whether it's a ghost or spirit. You would not think that it's part of anything involving the Civil War, people that died there, because none of them obviously would have those type of large green eyes. Or if it could be something along the lines of a cryptid, some other type of weird entity, something else that would be chronicled within my normal playlist of videos. Also hard to discern, because most of the time the cryptids that I talk about are more of animals, like they truly are animals, just like any other animal on the earth. They're just trying to live by. They don't have the type of intelligence that this creature has. So who knows? Maybe it truly is an urban legend because of the mysteriousness surrounding it and the rarer circumstances that people have when it comes to encounters with it. Even though it's been around for a couple of centuries, at least when it comes to being documented, and notably being even present before that time period, there have still been just a small handful of circumstances involving people coming across old green eyes. Interesting stuff. But if anybody has been there to that specific place, specifically in this case the actual military park, the full name is called the Chickamauga and Chattanooga National Military Park. I'd love to hear what your experiences are. Maybe if you were there at night and you happen to see more as far as that eerie sense like that park ranger had whenever this old green eyes was about to come out, please let me know. Post them in the comments below. This would definitely be a place on a bucket list if I'm ever around that park that I would love to check out and see, not just for historical purposes, because I'm a big fan of the history of the United States, but yeah, also the chance to come across this, then absolutely. But again, any more local experiences would definitely be great to share. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.